talking
rotation.
about? What are you talking
heard him.
about?
You never give me a fair shake. HBO needs to fire you. You don't know about boxing. You ain't you not.
Floyd Mayweather Jr. was boxing's most calculated businessman, a defensive genius whose perfect record and financial empire required systematic protection against fighters who posed legitimate threats to his undefeated legacy.
Comes back a straight right. Now Castillo against the ropes. Unbelievable.
Money Mayweather transformed boxing from sport into a business venture where every opponent's selection involved risk assessment and profit maximization rather than seeking the most challenging competition available. His success stemmed from understanding that athletic achievement meant nothing without corresponding financial rewards and legacy preservation that could generate income long after retirement. Mayweather operated like a corporate executive who viewed potential opponents as business risks requiring careful evaluation.
But it didn't hurt Floyd Mayweather at all. Mayweather with the speed again, bangs him up against the ropes. This is going to be fun.
Before accepting contracts that might jeopardize his perfect record or earning potential. But his calculated approach attracted enemies who resented his cherry-picking tactics and systematic avoidance of dangerous challengers who might expose his limitations through sustained pressure or superior natural ability. Some opponents forced him into survival mode that revealed vulnerabilities hidden beneath his defensive excellence and business acumen. Others represented existential threats to his financial empire through their fan base, youth, or fighting style that could have ended his perfect record and damaged his carefully constructed brand. The worst enemies exposed his true priorities as businessman first and competitor second when faced with choices between financial security and athletic greatness. We're examining 6 fighters who threatened Floyd Mayweather's empire and discovered that challenging boxing's most successful businessman meant facing systematic retaliation designed to protect his perfect record and financial legacy. 6. Shane Mosley. Starting at number 6 is Shane Mosley, the fated veteran whose explosive second-round knockdown exposed Mayweather's mortality and created the most terrifying moment in his entire professional career. Mosley caught Mayweather with a devastating right hand that sent him crashing to the canvas while revealing fundamental vulnerabilities that his defensive mastery usually concealed from opponents and observers. The knockdown represented Mayweather's worst nightmare because it demonstrated that his perfect defensive system could be breached by experienced fighters who possessed sufficient power and timing to exploit momentary lapses in concentration. Mosley's success proved that even the most calculated defensive approach had limitations when facing determined opposition with legitimate knockout ability. Mayweather's survival and recovery showcased his championship heart while revealing the panic and desperation that lurked beneath his confident exterior when facing genuine physical danger. The veteran's early success forced Mayweather into defensive survival mode that lasted several rounds while he regained composure and tactical control. The psychological impact extended beyond the immediate fight, as Mayweather realized that aging legends with nothing to lose could still threaten his perfect record through explosive moments that transcended systematic preparation and defensive positioning. Mosley's knockdown became a recurring nightmare that influenced Mayweather's future opponent selection and strategic approach. This fight haunted Mayweather because it proved that his defensive brilliance could not guarantee safety against experienced opponents who possessed natural punching power combined with the courage to take risks that younger fighters might avoid. 5. Miguel Cotto. At number 5 is Miguel Cotto, the Puerto Rican warrior whose relentless body attack and sustained pressure exposed Mayweather's limitations when facing determined opponents who refused to be discouraged by defensive brilliance or tactical adjustments. Cotto possessed the physical strength and boxing intelligence necessary to implement systematic body punishment that compromised Mayweather's mobility and defensive positioning. The body shots accumulated throughout their encounter while creating cumulative damage that affected Mayweather's movement patterns and defensive reflexes in ways that his opponents rarely achieved through conventional headhunting approaches. Cotto's systematic approach to bodywork demonstrated superior boxing intelligence that matched his physical capabilities. Mayweather struggled to maintain his usual defensive perfection while dealing with sustained punishment that forced him to engage in physical exchanges rather than relying on hit-and-run tactics that usually neutralized aggressive opponents. Cotto's pressure created situations where Mayweather appeared ordinary rather than exceptional. The Puerto Rican's success proved that disciplined pressure fighters could force Mayweather into uncomfortable positions where his defensive advantages became neutralized through sustained physical contact and body punishment that accumulated over championship rounds. Cotto represented the blueprint for defeating defensive masters through systematic physical warfare. Their encounter revealed that Mayweather's defensive system had exploitable weaknesses when facing opponents who combined physical strength with tactical discipline and the determination to absorb punishment while delivering systematic body shots that compromised defensive mobility and positioning over extended competition. 4. José Luis Castillo. Number 4 brings us José Luis Castillo, the Mexican buzzsaw whose controversial decision loss represented Mayweather's most questionable victory and closest call before achieving superstar status and financial independence. Castillo's relentless pressure and body attack created systematic problems that Mayweather struggled to solve through his usual defensive tactics and strategic adjustments. The first encounter revealed fundamental flaws in Mayweather's approach. When facing determined pressure fighters who possess sufficient conditioning and mental toughness to maintain constant forward movement throughout championship rounds. Castillo's style neutralized many of Mayweather's defensive advantages while creating scoring opportunities that many observers felt warranted victory. The controversial decision sparked widespread criticism about judging bias and hometown favoritism that protected Mayweather's perfect record despite questionable performance against legitimate championship-level opposition. Castillo's systematic pressure had created enough doubt about the outcome to damage Mayweather's reputation for decisive victories. The rematch provided Mayweather with opportunities to address tactical problems while implementing strategic adjustments that prevented Castillo from duplicating his earlier success. However, the initial encounter remained a permanent reminder of his vulnerability to certain fighting styles and pressure approaches. Castillo's near victory represented the closest anyone came to ending Mayweather's perfect record during his developmental years while proving that determined Mexican fighters with proper conditioning could create systematic problems for even the most gifted defensive boxers through sustained pressure and body punishment. 3. Marcos Maidana. At number 3 is Marcos Maidana, the Argentine savage whose crude fighting style and relentless aggression forced Mayweather to abandon his usual defensive elegance in favor of ugly tactics, including excessive clinching, holding, and systematic fouling that preserved his perfect record through referee favoritism. Maidana's approach violated every principle of technical boxing that Mayweather usually dominated through superior skill and defensive positioning. The Argentine's willingness to engage in rough physical exchanges created chaos that neutralized Mayweather's systematic advantages while forcing him into survival mode throughout both encounters. The referee bias became obvious as Mayweather received favorable treatment for tactics that would have resulted in point deductions against other fighters facing similar circumstances. The systematic protection revealed how Mayweather's perfect record depended on officiating favoritism when facing opponents whose styles neutralized his defensive advantages.
Valiantly trying to fight back, gets hurt with the left hook.
Maidana's success demonstrated that primitive aggression combined with physical strength could compromise even the most sophisticated defensive systems when referees allowed excessive clinching and holding that prevented sustained exchanges. The Argentine forced Mayweather to reveal his limitations when facing opponents who refused to respect his defensive brilliance. Their encounters proved that Mayweather's perfect record required systematic protection from officiating bias when facing fighters whose crude styles created problems that could not be solved through technical superiority alone. Maidana exposed the ugly reality behind defensive perfection when challenged by determined physical opponents. 2. Manny Pacquiao. Number 2 is Manny Pacquiao, the Filipino icon whose 5-year avoidance campaign revealed Mayweather's business cowardice and systematic fear of facing the one opponent who possessed the speed, power, and southpaw angles necessary to threaten his perfect record and financial empire. The negotiations became elaborate exercises in delay tactics as Mayweather used drug testing requirements, purse disputes, and contractual complications to postpone the inevitable confrontation while both fighters aged beyond their prime capabilities. The systematic avoidance damaged Mayweather's reputation while revealing his true priorities as businessman rather than competitor. Mayweather's team created impossible demands and artificial obstacles that prevented the fight from occurring during both fighters' prime years when the outcome remained genuinely uncertain. The delay tactics protected Mayweather's perfect record while sacrificing the sport's most anticipated encounter for business calculations and risk management.
Well, Manny's got to stay focused and concentrate.
The eventual fight occurred years past both fighters' peaks while generating massive financial rewards that validated Mayweather's business approach despite criticism about competitive cowardice and systematic avoidance of dangerous opposition. The delayed encounter proved less compelling than anticipated due to timing manipulation. Pacquiao's presence in the division represented an existential threat to Mayweather's perfect record, because the Filipino possessed unique physical attributes and fighting style that could have exposed defensive limitations when both fighters were in their prime competitive condition and athletic capabilities. And finally, at number 1, the most threatening challenge of all, Canelo Alvarez, the young Mexican superstar whose combination of youth, power, and massive fan base represented the ultimate existential threat to Mayweather's empire and forced him into early retirement rather than facing inevitable defeat. Canelo possessed everything that terrified Mayweather about the next generation, including superior physical strength, natural punching power, and age advantages that could not be overcome through defensive tactics or business manipulation. The Mexican's youth represented time working against Mayweather's aging reflexes and declining physical capabilities. Their encounter became Mayweather's biggest financial payday, while representing his most dangerous gamble against an opponent who possessed the tools necessary to end his perfect record through systematic pressure and superior physical conditioning. The weight manipulation and catch-weight requirements revealed Mayweather's desperation to gain competitive advantages. Canelo's post-fight success and championship reign validated Mayweather's assessment that the Mexican represented his natural successor and most dangerous potential opponent during his later career years.
Again.
Canelo, great body shot.
The young fighter's continued excellence proved that Mayweather's victory came against someone destined for greatness. Mayweather's retirement immediately after their encounter demonstrated his recognition that Canelo represented the future, while his own capabilities were declining toward inevitable defeat against younger, stronger opposition with superior natural gifts and championship potential. The strategic retirement timing prevented Canelo from gaining revenge while preserving Mayweather's perfect record against the one opponent who could have destroyed his legacy through superior youth, power, and determination that represented boxing's natural evolution beyond defensive mastery. From business calculations to strategic retirement, Floyd Mayweather proved money talks louder than competition. Which threat was most dangerous? Subscribe for more boxing empire analysis.